Welcome back to the Ed Morrissey Show. You're seeing him right there, the Prince of Twitter, the Regent of RedState.com, Andrew Malcolm. The final Tim's episode of the year. We'll be back in a couple of weeks to ring in 2026. But right now we're coming to the end of 2025, and Andrew, by golly, I think we might be making some progress on this whole protection racket media thing because 60 Minutes. Bari Weiss has sort of lowered the boom on 60 Minutes. They're about ready to run this sort of a rehash of a story that was out over the summer. All the newspapers had it. It was about this CCOT center in El Salvador that they were deporting Venezuelan gang members to.
Yeah,
that was not very nice place, and it made all the newspapers. But apparently, Cheryl Alfonsi, who is not as good as Fonzie on Happy Days, but Cheryl Alfonsi, decided that they were going to do a 15, 20-minute segment, as is usual, on 60 Minutes on this particular topic. And Bari Weiss, who is the new editor-in-chief, apparently takes that title very seriously, Andrew, because she actually wanted to review this work, watched it on Thursday, sent notes saying this isn't enough. Apparently, whatever changes were made between Thursday and Sunday still didn't make the grade. So Bari Weiss said, yeah, we're not running that one. We'll hold off on that one.
Isn't that something? God bless her. I just...
Now, I'm the managing editor of hotair.com, which nobody takes seriously. Not even me. I tell people, and this is my new thing, I think I've mentioned it to you before, but I tell people now that I'm the Camerlengo of hotair.com, right? Now, the Camerlengo is a role at the Vatican. And the only time anybody ever hears about the Camerlengo is when there's no Pope. It's the, sede vacante, when you don't have a Pope and you're about ready to hold a conclave and all this stuff. There's a guy that's actually in charge. He's the Chamberlain. He's the court Chamberlain. In Italian, that's Camerlengo. I only found out about this during this last conclave, right? And so it became very clear that the Camerlengo was the guy who was in charge when nobody else was in charge. And that is, I am now the Camerlengo of Hot Air. I have not run this by the powers that be yet, but I plan to draft a proposal. Giving myself that title.
Make a decision and then apologize later.
Yeah, right. Better to ask for forgiveness than to ask for permission. But she is not the Camerlengo of CBS News. Clearly, she is the editor-in-chief, and she came out with a statement today because Cheryl Alfonsi was the one who broke this, that they're not running my piece and it's a political act and all this kind of stuff. And at first, Bari Weiss was saying, well, we're going to run this piece. We just want to do some more work on it. And then after Alfonsi went public with this, Bari Weiss sent out a statement that said, this story is basically a rehash of what everybody else has already reported. So there's not much point in doing this unless we're going to add something to the story. We'll get around to airing this when we have something original to add. And her thing was...
Good for her.
Specifically, apparently, she wanted administration officials on the record talking about this. Somebody who would get on camera. Now, Alfonsi said, well, nobody would go on camera. So this is like giving them a kill switch on stories. And she says, go ahead. I'll let you react to that.
A real journalism organization, there used to be, when you call somebody for fair comment on something that you knew they didn't want to comment about and they didn't get back to you, they thought that was a way to stop the story. And so what you did was you ran the story and then said, high up in the story, administration officials did not return repeated calls for comment. So there is a way to do that, but Cheryl obviously wants to go with what she already had.
Well, she's claiming that she did, but there's another way to play that game too, right? Which is that you wait until the very last moment and say, we're running this story on Sunday and it's, Wednesday.
Yeah.
And we'd like to get your comment on this. Now, this is a pretty well-known technique
Oh,
to,
yeah. Even do it Friday night. Yeah, right.
Yeah. You do it on Friday night. We're running this on Sunday. Or we're running it tomorrow morning. This is the story. We'll be happy to interview you and get your response to this story. And that's sandbag. I don't know if that's what happened. I suspect that's what happened. Though I suspect that is the kind of thing that happened, because this is the kind of thing that 60 Minutes does all the time. Yeah. They ambush people, they sandbag people. I would call this more sandbagging than ambushing. But Alfonsi was very, very irate about this and said that we ran this through CBS's attorneys and standards and practices 5 times. And I'm kind of curious, Andrew, is this the same standards and practices that they ran the Kamala Harris thing through last year? Or rather, Gate 21 years ago? It was 60 Minutes too, but I mean, it's still, CBS news organization.
Yeah.
That whole attorneys and standards and practices thing, I'm not sure I buy that.
No, of course not. This is the way that woke fights back when they know they're losing and they get desperate. God bless Bari Weiss. Now, she was hired by the New York Times to work on the opinion page. I don't remember exactly when, 2018, 2019. And her specific assignment from the publisher was to get more diversity of voices on the editorial page, because, as the editorial page has always been at the New York Times, it's all one-sided liberal. And so, guess what? Ed, Bari took this seriously, and she did that. And there was grumbling. And then she signed up, she got Tom Cotton, or accepted Tom Cotton's op-ed piece saying, well, maybe we should use the army in the streets during all the burning and protests over the cop killing the black guy.
George Floyd.
George Floyd, yeah, right. And so she ran the Tom Cotton piece, and all hell broke loose. Mainly from the staff, which I only worked there 26 years, but that was in the old days of a real media. But there was, between the editorial page and the newsroom, there was a barrier, like the Berlin Wall. And you couldn't, you really was kind of frowned on talking with them. They didn't call you for background on a story you were working on that they wanted to write an editorial about. They had weekly lunches off the record with newsmakers, and they brought in deli sandwiches. And to attend those was fascinating. But yeah, I had to get specific permission from the newsroom to go up to the 10th floor and sit in on these lunches. And I was not to participate, I was to listen, like auditing the class. So anyway, Bari ran this Tom Cotton op-ed, which the staff said, oh, this is terrible. And Dean Baquet, who was the editor and was my editor for a while, and a good man, I liked him as an editor, reprimanded the editorial page, and the publisher said, okay, that's fine. And then the staff on whatever the New York Times calls Slack, or whatever their internal communication system is, they said this was threatening their lives, and they raised,
I feel unsafe.
Unsafe, and Bari Weiss was damaging them. And so they the management doubled back, and they fired James Bennett, who is the brother of the Senator, Michael Bennett. And Bari Weiss stayed on and then decided she left. And so she left and then started this magnificent free press, independent journalism that goes both ways. And then, of course, Ellison bought the Free Press and hired her as editor-in-chief. So, I've never met her. I've never been in the same room. But you don't fool with her. She has standards, and she's going to stick with them. And
well, she was hired to do that, though. I mean, that's exactly what Ellison wanted out of her, is to do exactly this. Yeah.
But you're going to get pushback, and they're going to try, and she's going to get tested, and she knows it. And if she wants it to be a bigger fight, she'll suspend Cheryl or whatever her name is. But if you think about it, just think about it. If it truly is a rehash, and Bari's got good judgment on news, if this truly is a rehash, what's the point of it? It's to fill up 15 minutes on a holiday weekend when not that many people are going to watch. So she said we need to get the administration on camera, and we need to get fresh stuff, which is what news organizations are supposed to do. You don't wait 6 months and rehash somebody's story, right?
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. So this is perfectly normal. And you and I are relishing, it's not chaos, but you and I are relishing the tumult, because those people who are creating the tumult have created tumult in the world's life by their news coverage. So it's fun to watch. It's very entertaining. And it is, as you and I talked about this a few weeks ago, this is a good sign that there is some beginning change. It's beginning, but some change at CBS, which paid Trump a good deal of money as damages.
Right.
I mean, Washington Post and the LA Times. And so, yeah, there's hope.
I agree, and I almost want to do an Andy Rooney. I'm going to start, Andrew and I are going to spend today trying to audition to be the next Andy Rooney on Bari Weiss's 60 Minutes. Don't you just hate it when news organizations just simply don't understand news? Don't you just hate that?
I mean, the word news is new, right? I mean,
Right.
It is new. It's not rehash. Tonight's rehash.
I remember when news was actually new. If it wasn't news, we would call it olds.
Yes. Oh,
Bari, I'm just waiting for a phone call from
you.
Bari.
I cede the job to you. If you're not going to get the ambassador to the Vatican or ambassador to Ireland, you need to be the Andy Reid Morrissey.
Andy Reid is the Chiefs coach. I
No,
wouldn't mind that job either.
Andy,
I wouldn't mind that job either, because except for this season, it's usually pretty good. Plus, you get to hang out with Taylor. So I wouldn't mind being Andy Reid either, but I'll settle for Andy Rooney. I'll be the Andy Rooney of the new CBS News. Maybe Bari Weiss will be the new Andy Rooney. Maybe she'll come on the last 2 minutes and tell people, don't you remember when news was news? Don't you remember when we actually covered stuff that you hadn't heard before? All right, I'm making Andrew choke up here.
Okay,
I'll stop auditioning now. That's plenty of auditioning.
You made my week, and that's the way it is, folks. Good night.
Well, there you go. And that's the way it was, apparently, and that's what Bari Weiss wants to get away from. Yeah. That's the way it was a few months ago, folks. Thanks for tuning in.
That'll serve her purpose. This isn't all just this is useful resistance for her, because others in that organization who don't want to be martyrs will see what Bari's pushing for, and they will quietly, without announcement, they will make more of an effort to get the administration side to be more balanced, to make sure they have new stuff. They pick up on the lesson. That's the way you do. And you can do it from a news management. I was in news management for a while. You can do it negatively, as that is, or you could do it positively, and that is make a hero out of somebody who's doing exactly what you want. And then the rest of the world sees, okay, well, I want to be a hero too.
Well, organizationally speaking, whenever you took over a failing organization, once you fired one or two people, the word starts to get around, right? And I think Alfonsi is basically cruising for that. I think she's in the pole position to be the example to be set for others. And I mean, I don't wish her any ill will, but it is worth noting that Alfonsi, who's out there saying, well, this was run by standards and practices and attorneys 5 times, she was the one behind that hit piece on Ron DeSantis 4 years ago.
No, really?
Yeah, people are digging this up. Guy Benson dug it up. A.G. Hamilton, a bunch of people on Twitter are digging. I think Red Steez dug it up as well. She was the one that did the hit piece on DeSantis that ended up falling apart when DeSantis pushed back on it. So once again, not the most credible of sources, I think, on reliability.
Yeah, exactly.
And
well, this is delicious.
All I said is we just need more. She's not saying it's wrong. She's not saying it's defamatory. She just said, this is the same stuff that's been reported for months. We just need something.
And how do you argue with that?
Yeah, you can't argue with it. Plus, you really should get the administration to get somebody on the record. And if it takes another week to get somebody on the record, then it takes another week. But that's what you do to have a story like this. Now, I do want to talk a little bit about the kill switch thing, because I think that is actually a legit concern. That you can't just say we can't air something if the White House won't respond. I get that. And that's what Alfonsi is claiming Weiss is saying, but that's not what Weiss is saying. Weiss is saying we need to get some principles on screen for this televised news segment. And if it takes us a little longer to do that, then we're going to take the time to get it done. And I don't think that's unreasonable. Yeah,
I agree. You're right. If the administration, well, it is very smart, but what the administration could do is do it in this coming week, and then they show it on New Year's weekend when nobody is watching, if that's their goal. Or they could pick up on Bari Weiss and say, thank you very much. We really appreciate your effort to be fully to be comprehensive in this coverage. And here's our statement, and send out Steve Miller or whatever.
Well, and let's face it, this administration is not shy about putting themselves in front of, hostile journalists. I mean, was it this week or was it last week? I think it was last week where they did the Vanity Fair. Everybody participated in the Vanity Fair of all places, right? CBS News. Vanity freaking Fair. Condé Nasty. Okay. And they all cooperated with this thing, and it turned out to be, they all end up griping about it afterwards. And all of us are going, yeah. Vanity Fair sucks. We get it. What the hell were you thinking?
Yeah, exactly.
So it's not like they're not going to talk to you. They're lining up to talk
on the other hand, you do have to try. I remember in the first term, nobody was covering Melania. And she went on her solo trip through Africa, and some ABC correspondent wanted to interview her, and she said, sure. And she sat down for a very reasonable interview. And she's a smart woman. She knows when they're going to ask her, well, what do you think when your husband does this? And so she's got an answer for that. So sometimes it's good to engage and be wise about it, but to engage.
Yep. By the way, there's a longer statement now from Bari Weiss out. I think it came out in just the last hour or so.
Oh,
I'll just cover this very briefly.
Okay.
The first bullet point says that we haven't presented this piece doesn't present the administration's argument for using the Aliens Enemies Act at all. Doesn't present it. And it doesn't give them the opportunity to say, do they regret using it? Because it's not really being used at the moment. It's also still tied up in legal affairs. And it says, of the 252 Venezuelans sent to CCUT, we say nearly half have no criminal histories. In other words, more than half do have criminal histories. We should spend a beat explaining this. We need to do a better job of explaining the legal rationale by which the administration detained and deported these 252 Venezuelans to CCUT. It says, in other words, I believe we need to do more reporting here. This is a memo that went out to the entire staff at CBS News because of all the publicity that's surrounding this. That to me sounds pretty reasonable. I mean,
it is. It is.
she's saying
that, and it's old-fashioned professional.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, it is, and they're getting called out on it, but they should be. And if they're smart, with the new owner, I mean, this isn't just an editor who could be fired. This is an owner.
Yeah. It's like Jeff Bezos at the Washington Post, who's trying to do something similar. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's well, it's fun to watch. It's entertaining, but it's also hopeful about. I don't know that the mainstream media can ever regain the credibility that it once had. The credibility it once had was because it was basically a monopoly, and now it has to compete. And the way it's competing is to cave to woke people on their staff, and just portray one side of it, and that doesn't work anymore with some of these new owners, which is encouraging.
We got to get to your pieces over at redstate.com, by the way.
Okay,
we've talked enough. We've talked enough about Bari Weiss. Now we got to talk about the Prince of Twitter. So, briefly, because the headline for this suggests brevity. The one thing Kamala Harris says she does not want to talk about. I'm not even sure what that. What doesn't she want to talk about? I mean, it's not that she doesn't want to talk. It's just that she's usually incoherent when she does want to talk. But what is the one thing that Kamala Harris does not want to talk about?
And the fact is that she doesn't want to talk about not talking about it a lot because it's 2028. She's desperate to keep her name in the mix, not because she's going to be a candidate in 2028. If she is, she's dead in the water. But because this will, support her speaking fees for the next 3 years. That's all she's trying to do. You're not going to, and I said this in the piece, you're not going to make a lot of money on the speaking circuit based on the fact that you did nothing as vice president except help with the cover-up of an inept president. She's not going to make a lot of money if they introduce her as the vice president, the first Black female vice president to run for presidency and lose spectacularly to our walking nightmare of Donald Trump.
All right,
and so they would say, here's the potential candidate coming back in 2028. She's not. She was inept. She proved it. And the donors don't want to give now just because of her. So that's her gig now. Is that now that I think she's done selling her book, which is marked down on Amazon.
Yeah, it was marked down right from the very beginning. The only memoir that's worse than hers is Olivia Nuzzi's. But we won't go into that one. Look, I mean, I buy that. That's the only way she can be relevant. And yes, she's probably going to want to be on the speaking tour. But I've got to say that it is a depressing thought that Kamala Harris, of all people, is going to have a career on the speaking circuit. She can't speak. I'm going to go back to Andy Rooney. Do you remember when people on the speaking circuit could actually speak? Do you remember in America? I don't want to make Andrew throw up on camera, so I'm gonna back off. But I mean,
well,
honestly,
I'll tell you a funny behind-the-scenes story. I was on the Bush campaign, the first one, and in the 1999 primary season, we did a debate in Iowa, and on the stage were 7 of them: McCain, Forbes, Bush, and Alan Keyes. Remember Alan Keyes?
Oh yeah, I remember Alan Keyes. Okay. I think he's still around, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So Alan Keyes was backstage, and I couldn't resist. That was the newsman in me, and I said, Alan, there doesn't appear to be much chance of you winning an Iowa primary, let alone the nomination. why are you doing this? And he looked at me startled and he said, what? This jacks up my speaking fees for the next 2 years. Just the celebrity of being a Black Republican and to be accepted, because he had to be, on these debates. So that's what he did. And it worked, because when the real candidate against Obama, the real Republican candidate for the Senate in Illinois, when his seamy divorce papers were accidentally leaked, Ed,
Yeah.
he had to drop out against Obama, and the Republicans picked Alan Keyes as a sacrificial lamb, but he was fine with it because he jacked up his speaking fees for longer. And I think he was at the UN briefly in some job during the Reagan administration.
He was assistant undersecretary of state. Yeah, I just realized.
Yeah.
I just found that. I looked him up just to see if he was still around. Yeah, he was assistant undersecretary of state for intergovernmental affairs or something.
Assistant. Yeah, those job titles are heavy. Assistant, like the Washington assistant deputy, assistant first deputy press secretary. So what in the world does that mean? Anyway, it matters in their world, which is okay.
Well, hey, who am I to complain about speaking fees, I guess? But yeah, I mean, Kamala Harris is not going to have a long career on the speaking circuit. I'm pretty sure about that. So, all right, your next thing, we got to get to this. The secret to Trump's enduring power base has been in the open all along. Now, we're seeing polls. You actually flagged a CBS poll showing numbers. I actually, I know he's up, he's down, he's up, he's down. His numbers are still, even down, a lot better than they were during the first term, especially this particular part of the first term. And it's sort of like second term Obama numbers, right? I mean, Obama wasn't terribly popular policy-wise. He was personally popular, which, carried him over quite a bit. But policy-wise, he wasn't terribly popular in his second term and even in the late part of his first term, which is the reason why we thought Mitt Romney had a shot at him. But these numbers are actually not bad. I mean, it just really doesn't make a whole lot of difference because he doesn't pay much attention to him either. I mean, he just does what he's going to do. He's not driven by these.
You're right. They're not bad. And NBC did a poll, and it broke out people, Republicans who considered themselves Republicans and Republicans who considered themselves MAGA Republicans. And it found a few points drop among the MAGAs. So, Ed, Trump only has 70% support. So, I mean, you can't really make a story out of the fact that a guy is nearly 3/4 supported. So anyway, the point of the column was that Trump was so effective in creating his base, and not just creating a base. Presidential candidates create a base, and then it usually crumbles after a year or two. But we're now about to enter year 11, and Trump's base is still very, very strong. And I think the reason he did it was he was the only one of 17 Republican candidates in 2015-16 who went and heard the anger and frustration in the heartland and voiced it. And then he won with it narrowly. And then he not only voiced it, but he actually did, one by one, fulfill his campaign promises. Remember, we're going to list 20 candidates that he would pick from for the Supreme Court. And he did. He had Mitch McConnell's help, blocking, what's his name, Merrick Garland. Trump, and with the evangelicals and fighting abortion and protecting, what's it called? The Sisters of the
Poor. Yeah, the
Sisters of the Poor, the nuns. And the military got a military raise in his first term, and the tax cuts. he did them one by one. And energy independence, which on day one, Biden started to kill intentionally. Energy independence, and I see Trump has now canceled the leases for 5 wind farms off the Atlantic coast.
Yeah, Beach wore about that earlier today. Yeah. That's
so it's so ordinary to think that a politician would make promises and then keep them. What's extraordinary is that Trump kept them. Most don't. They come in, they do a couple of things and then forget about it until the next time. And I remember when I was working in Washington, remember, what was it called? The marriage, there was a death penalty, or the marriage death penalty. Anyway,
the marriage penalty. The marriage penalty. Yeah.
There was some kind of tax penalty. And I remember saying to a Republican staffer on the Hill, and I said, well, you got the votes. Why don't you just fix it? And he looked at me like, well, no, it's a great fundraiser. Yeah. And I mean, that's the way they look at these issues. Well, can we raise money off of it? Can we use it against their opponent in the next campaign? Well, Trump said, the hell with the next campaign. I said I would do it, and I'm going to do it. And you may not like anything about Trump, or you may like most about Trump, whatever the case. You got to give credit to a politician, a federal politician, who finally says what he's going to do and then does it. I mean, that's remarkable. And his base has rewarded him with staunch support now entering year 11.
And I think that this is the key to this, is that he's certainly a lightning rod for controversy. He likes that, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's part of, I guess you could say, when I think of it, it's part of the draw. It's part of who he is. He's just combative. It's a reason why Donald Trump in the 90s kind of got involved in wrestling. If you really want to understand who Donald Trump is, it's the kayfabe. He is, it fits him. Wrestling is his political model. It's what he does. It's probably his business model too, for that matter. Yeah. So if you want to understand him, that's what you kind of have to understand about him, is that he likes to fight.
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
And he comes out of show business.
Right, exactly.
He had the #1 rated show on NBC. And who else came out of show business, Ed? Ronald Reagan.
Ronald Reagan.
Yeah. They know that the modern old-fashioned politics, they stayed on the porch, other people campaigned, and you picked the one you wanted. But now you got to campaign. You got to look good. You got to be tall. You've got to be able to speak coherently, unlike someone who ran recently. And
who's going to be a star on the speaking circuit? You're going to make me go back to my Andy Rooney. Don't do this.
You remember the time when? Yes,
you can do it. We're competing now, Bari. There's 2 candidates.
You remember the time when Ed Morrissey was a reasonable commentator?
Geez, I remember that time. I am old. I remember that time too.
Whenever I think about show business and politics, you remember that picture? I don't know why he allowed it to be taken, of John Edwards. I don't remember when it must have been 2004, combing his hair, getting his hair just right.
I think wasn't that when he was on the tarmac someplace? He was holding up air traffic or something like that?
No. Oh, no. Bill Clinton held up. He got a haircut.
Oh, that's right. It was Bill Clinton. Yeah.
Bill Clinton got a haircut in LAX, held up all air traffic, sitting on the runway getting a haircut for an hour.
Yeah.
He was the president that took a poll to find out where Americans thought he should take a vacation. But it worked. Anyway, it's showbiz. Politics is largely showbiz. When you see Trump speaking, you're looking at Trump, but behind him are a whole bunch of people. That's showbiz. They can't see what's going on. They can hardly hear what's going on. But if you look at it carefully, there's a Chinese couple, there's a black woman, there's a black kid, there's that military guy. I mean, it's carefully arranged. It's show business. And part of my goal writing the column at Red State is to not expose it, but just to explain it so people understand why these things happen. I think if Trump was smart, as he goes out to explain, he is smart. I don't mean it that way.
Right. Yeah.
But
No.
if a smarter strategy to explain his affordability argument would be to go out and speak to regular crowds. He loves rallies. He loves being adored, but he doesn't stick to a script. He thinks of something else he wants to say. That makes him very authentic. I mean, there's no doubt about it. Nobody can say Trump is a fake. He is very, very authentic, but he's authentic getting off the message that was carefully designed about the economy, because he thinks of something he wants to say, and the crowd cheered, and that makes him think of something else to say. He's human. So I think maybe if he went to a crowd, not a hostile crowd, but a regular crowd, not people in red hats only.
Yeah.
I have a friend. I have a female friend who was not a Trump his first term. Was not a Trump fan. Was happy to have a Republican in, but she wasn't a Trump fan, and she took her sons to a rally. I think it was New Hampshire, Massachusetts, or somewhere, and she came away 100% MAGA. The guy has a magnetic personality. It's wonderful. It's a powerful tool. He's a political comet. We will not see another like him in our lifetime. And we have to enjoy and understand what he is and why he does what he does. And a lot of it is showbiz, and we have to understand that.
Yep. Including with Bari Weiss. Bari, you have 2 Andy Rooneys here for the price of 1. Maybe not for the price of 1, but you at least have 2 Andy Rooneys. So.
Again, and you could have alternate weeks. We don't have to. We don't have to compete.
We could. What was that? Point counterpoint.
Dueling counterpoint. Ed, you ignorant slut.
Point counterpoint. We can both be Andy Rooney. Point counterpoint. See, Bari, we're with you, Bari. You just got to hang with us, and we'll tell you how to make all this work. But that argument leads me to jokes of the day, and I don't know if you have.
I have nothing. No, I got nothing. It's Christmas week. I took jokes off.
All right. Well, I got at least one, and depending if I want to tell an off-color one, maybe 2. But at least one,
Christmas
I got one for you.
Week? No, I think
maybe I should be again. So an old man is living alone in Idaho. He wants to plant his potatoes, but it's very hard work, and he's just not up to it. And his only son, Bubba, who would have done it for him, is in prison. And the old man writes to his son, says, "Dear Bubba, I'm feeling pretty bad because it looks like I won't be able to plant my potato garden this year. I'm just getting to be too old to be digging a garden plot. If you were here, all my troubles would be over. I know that you would dig the plot for me. Love, Dad." A few days later, he gets a letter from his son. Says, "Dear Dad, for heaven's sake, don't dig up that garden. That's where I buried the bodies. Love, Bubba." Geez. So at 4 a.m. the next morning, the FBI raids the entire place. They and the local police search the entire place. They dig up everything, including the potato garden. They're looking for the bodies. They can't find it. So they apologize and leave. And the next day, he gets a letter from his son. Says, "Dear Dad, go ahead and plant the potatoes now. It's the best I could do under the circumstances. Love, Bubba."
The best I could do.
All right. I got one more for you. But I got to find it over here at jokesoftheday.net. And I got to make sure I scroll past all the off-color ones.
You want to do this before the holy day?
Well, actually, this is actually, it's a little religious in nature. So this preacher gets up before his congregation and says, "Look, I just cannot keep working here on the compensation that I'm getting. I'm going to have to leave for a larger city and work a larger congregation." And there's a hush in the congregation. Nobody wants him to leave because they love him, but they understand. So one guy gets up and he owns a couple of car dealerships and says, "Look, the preacher stays. I will provide him with a new Cadillac every year and his wife with a Honda minivan to transport their children. Congregation erupts in applause. So another guy gets up, and he's a successful entrepreneur and investor. He says, look, if the preacher will stay on here, I'll personally double his salary, and I'll also establish a foundation to guarantee the college education of all of his children. The congregation erupts in applause. And then Sadie, this 88-year-old woman, gets up and says, if the preacher stays, I'll give him sex. And the congregation just silent. And the preacher starts blushing. He says, Sadie, whatever possessed you to say that? And she looks over at her 90-year-old husband, says, well, I was telling him we should help the preacher. What should we do to help the preacher? And my husband said, screw the preacher.
Oh, jeez. Okay. Oh, Merry Christmas, everybody.
Yeah, Merry Christmas. There you go. We're gonna. Don't you hate when people end their year-long podcast on that kind of a note? Doesn't that just make you nuts? All right, on that note.
You got me, Ed. You can break me up every week with that.
On that note, Drew Malcolm is not Andy Rooney, neither am I, but man, we both can do a mean Andy Rooney impression. God bless and keep Andy Rooney. But we will be back after the first of the year with more of this, because all of the people who do this show behind the scenes are, oddly enough, taking the holidays off for some reason. I don't know.
Imagine that.
But we'll be back after the holidays,
and hopefully the country can endure without us for 2 weeks.
We'll have to see. 2 weeks from now, we'll come back and figure it out. So
yeah.
But in the meantime, go to Twitter at @Malcolm. That's the Prince of Twitter, the regent of redstate.com. Go to redstate.com where he's got all of his stuff there. Almost called you Andy. Andrew, excuse me.
Don't you hate it when people screw up your name?
We have way too much fun with the Andy Rooney stuff. I mean, we should be doing more of it. All right, Andrew, you have a Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and come back here in 2 weeks, and we'll start doing a whole new year of this.
You too, Edward. You too, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you then.